6 million Jews were murdered by the Nazis. You know that story. But there was another people, nomadic, proud, rich in culture, whose genocide remains almost unknown. Their tragedy is called the Porajmos, or Samudaripan, the devouring. And today, we tell their story. Long before the Second World War, long before the Reich, there were the Romani. They are not a single tribe, but an ancient mosaic of clans and families who trace their origin to northern India. Over centuries they journeyed west, weaving their way through Persia, Byzantium and the Balkans into Europe. They brought with them music that still echoes in flamenco and folk, metalwork and trade skills, colourful caravans, and a language called Romani Chib. They were artisans, storytellers, traders, yet everywhere they went, rulers labelled them other, wanderers, outcasts, gypsies. Even before the Nazis seized power, Europe's laws stripped Romani families of freedom. Registration papers, curfews, and forced settlements marked them as dangerous. Yet through this, they survived. They adapted. They built bonds across borders, and they never stopped travelling. By the 1930s, racist pseudoscience was sweeping across the continent. In Germany, Romani families were forced to register at police stations. Scientists at the Racial Hygiene and Biological Population Research Unit measured their skulls and catalogued their skin tone. They were labelled asocial by courts and bureaucrats, not because of any crime, but because of who they were. The Swiss deported Romani children. The French interned families in camps. When Adolf Hitler rose to power, this network of discrimination became a machine. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, issued a decree, the final solution to the Gypsy question. Romani people were placed on the same lethal list as Jews, Slavs, and other targeted groups. In towns across Germany and Austria, police raided caravan camps at dawn. Families were pulled from beds, children still wearing nightshirts. In occupied Poland, Czechoslovakia, and the Balkans, orders were the same. Round up Zigeuner, seize their carts, brand their skin with numbers, and send them east. They came by the thousands. Some trains travelled days without water. Mothers held onto babies in darkness. Their destination, ghettos, forced labour camps, and death camps. In the Romani family camp at Auschwitz-Birkenau, entire clans lived behind electrified fences, starving and freezing. At Jasenovac in Croatia, SS and Ustaše guards tortured men and executed children. In Transnistria, Romanian soldiers marched Romani caravans into the wilderness and left them to die. In Auschwitz, Dr. Josef Mengele performed experiments on Romani twins, injecting diseases and amputating limbs. The victims called him the Angel of Death. And on the night of August 2nd, 1944, the SS liquidated the camp. Guards dragged mothers and toddlers into the gas chambers. Their screams were heard across the camp. In one night, over 4,000 Romani souls were extinguished. The prisoners had named it Gypsy Night. Not all died in camps. Special mobile killing units, the Einsatzgruppen, swept across Eastern Europe. They forced Romani travellers to stand at the edges of ravines and quarries. Bullets cut them down. Others were starved in makeshift ghettos or worked to death building roads, digging trenches, labouring on farms for German occupiers. Children were ripped from their mothers' arms and sold as servants to German families. The goal was annihilation. How many Romani were murdered? The Nazis rarely counted them. Records were burned. Survivors were ignored. Historians estimate that at least 500,000 Romani men, women and children died, perhaps more. That is a people the size of a small nation, devoured by hatred. When the war ended, Romani survivors returned to find their homes gone, caravans destroyed, relatives missing. They were not invited to Nuremberg to testify. Few received compensation. Schools never taught their children about the Porajmos. Until 1979, the German government classified Nazi persecution of the Romani as social control, not genocide. Many survivors were forced back into the very racist laws that had existed before the war. They were told to move on, to forget. To forget is to allow history to repeat. Today, Romani communities still face persecution. Children in Europe are segregated from schools, camps are burned, politicians call them parasites. But through the music of a violin, through the laughter of a bonfire, through stories told in secret, the Romani spirit survives. Their suffering cannot be undone, but their story must be told. They were victims of the same hatred that killed millions. They deserve to be mourned, remembered and honored. Thank you for listening to The Forgotten Genocide. Share this story. Speak their names, because remembrance is a form of justice.